Hey everybody, it's Amy with Blue, and I am here with
Kat, we're back.
we're back. We figured it out. We made a podcast. Here we
So
are.
proud of us. So proud.
Episode 2. Okay, so today what we've decided to talk about and discuss with you is the role you have as a manager or as a leader is ultimately where we want you, to be performing from. What is your role in handling client demanding behavior when they're getting rude, where we've got some conflict? What is your role in supporting your team members through that process, right?
Mm, yeah. And I love that you mentioned the difference between a manager and a leader and what those roles look like and how you can differentiate because that's a big one.
That's a big thing, and it's a big thing we really focus on a lot with Glue is the difference between managing and leading. Managing, it's very important. Managing has to happen or everything falls apart. But leading is where we really empower and inspire people, right? We
Mm.
are helping people grow. So there's sort of the manager part of it and all the questions that we address on this podcast. But then there's that next level, right? Like when you level up in a video game, like that next level that's about truly leading, which is really inspiring people to grow into the best version of themselves. So,
Yep,
Kat,
I
what
did.
would you say, like the overarching goal is as leaders in how we support our team as they're dealing with those types of uncomfortable situations?
First of all, I just have to say, when you said level up, I can only hear Mario in my head right now. Just level up. Well, I would say ultimately we want to protect our people, right? And
Yeah.
and also I will say when I go into practices, I have heard feedback when I sit down with the team that they feel like they're not being protected, that they're the wolves being thrown into the fire or whatever you want to say. And there's so many times where they're like, I have a list of people that I think should be fired from our clinic.
Right, right, right. 100%. I would like to address the metaphor wolves being thrown into the fire. I'm not sure that that's what you were going for there. I think
I
you
think I messed that up.
I think you
I thought
crossed two
something about a
things
den.
together.
There's something about a den.
But I get your point. And I
Okay.
think, of course, we all know that this really applies heavily for the people up front, the front desk warriors, who usually are going to be the first and oftentimes the last person to deal with a client that's being challenging. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think that protection part of this is so huge. We can't leave our people out to be, I'm picturing them like hanging from a thread, just being, beat up like a pinata, especially at the front desk. We've got to know when that moment is that we need to step in and recognizing, how do we communicate that with our team? How do we let them know that I'd like you to try and handle that client that's going a little off the rails? But if it gets to a point that you are, on a scale of 1 to 10 of discomfort, you get to that certain point, please hand it to me because I don't want this to cause you damage that then you take into the next client and the next day and the next week and the next month.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think this brings us to the next point, for every manager where that, scale of 1 to 10 to discomfort level is, where then we encourage our team to come to us. It's probably a little bit different for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's going to be based on your capability as a manager, as a leader in handling that situation, maximizing the positive outcome in that situation. But it also, the formula that goes into that is also that team members' ability to handle that situation. And so I think, we mentioned at the beginning this distinction between leading and managing. So, a manager steps in and sort of saves them, like bails out the person, takes that client into a room or does whatever, makes the phone calls, whatever has to happen to move that situation forward in a more positive way. But a leader is focused on empowering the team to be able to handle those situations largely on their own without it causing all of this stress and
Hmm.
cortisol and adrenaline, and they're still talking about it 3 days later when Mrs. Smith said XYZ, right? And so not only are we there sort of as that safety net, but we also want to be there in helping them grow into their role so that they can feel very competent and confident
Mm.
handling a client where things are going a little bit off the rails, right?
Yeah, totally. What I'm seeing here when you're saying this is like we manage the client. We want to get the client out of there in at least a neutral situation. We manage the client, we lead the team. So what does
Ooh,
that look like?
listen, that little sound bite. We manage the client, we lead the team. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what does it look like? What is a managing the client versus leading the team really break down into,
Yeah, right.
you know?
So, if you haven't been around glue much, one of the things that we focus on a whole lot is emotional intelligence because, I have called it from day one of glue, it is a life superpower. And there's
Mhm.
probably no more impactful place for having sort of mastered or at least, continuing to work on our emotional intelligence skills than in that moment when something is starting to go a little bit off the rails, like this conversation is not going like I expected it to. And being able to, in that moment, be aware of how we're starting to internally ramp up, right? You get that tension in your whole body. Sometimes we might even like squeeze our fists, hopefully not to punch, but just because it's this natural adrenaline,
Yes.
response. In when things get really intense, we often will start to shake. So recognizing that we're starting to go into that spiral, right, of
Hmm.
like stressed out, freaking out, that's called self-awareness. And
Hmm.
then that next skill set of emotional intelligence is self-management. And this is where the magic happens. Because in order for us to be able to effectively communicate with this client, we need to be able to be in sort of inside of our bodies, like I sound like you now, Kat, inside of our bodies, with all of your, with all,
Mindfulness.
yeah,
Look at
but
you.
inside of our bodies in that moment where our blood pressure does not go up a point, where our heart does not start racing, where we are immediately able to sort of like ground ourselves, stabilize ourselves, and say, oh, I know what's happening here. We're getting into a little bit of a conflict. And a conflict really is just misaligned expectations between the client and
Hmm.
the practice, right? And so we're getting into a little bit of a conflict. And so I'm just going to chill myself right here because I know what to do. I know what to do next. And
Yep.
ultimately, I know that even if I try to navigate this conversation and I'm not able to get that client, realigned, feeling like we're back on the same team, that I
Hmm.
can go to my manager and that manager is going to step in and going to take it the rest of the way. And so we have to teach them those skills, right?
There's this fine line between empowerment and abandonment
Mm.
in the workforce.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And so, when we say we're empowering them to do this on their own, we have to actually teach them the skills. We can't just say, "Well, I expect you to have the skills."
Right.
And you can do that, right? You
Yeah.
can fight lions, like you're fine.
Yeah. You
You
can
know,
what?
fight lions,
Oh, fight lions. So we've
like
got
caveman
wolves,
Joe.
lions, and fires today on our metaphors.
Yep. I'm
Yeah.
feeling feisty, I guess.
I had somebody hanging from a rope spinning around being beaten like a piñata. So we've
Yeah.
covered a
And you've
lot. We're going to have to make show notes just to reference our metaphors and define them. And so we've already talked about, or I've just sort of referenced in passing, having that, 1 to 10, level of client behavior where the manager steps in. Like, where is that number? Is it a 7? Is it a
hmm
4? I mean, it's probably different right now in a lot of practices, but I think a very important tool that we can create for ourselves is let's talk about this as a team. Let's talk about specific behaviors that we see on the regular, right? And when that escalates directly to the manager. And so we would discuss this as a team. And I'm thinking like right away, something like any type of racist comments, boom,
Yep.
gone. That goes
Yeah.
to the manager. And very likely those people are no longer invited to our practice, right? Anything that is personal attacks, right? Personal attacks on either our identity, our individuality, who we are as
Our
people,
intelligence, that's a
intelligence,
big one.
right? We can tell team members, like, if you get to that point and you want to hand it off, I am here for you. And
Yeah.
so we define, right, as a group, where are we comfortable and where does this have to be an automatic handoff
Hmm.
for the safety, emotional and mental safety, hopefully not physical safety, but for the safety of that team member and then for the most clear cut outcome for the health of
Hmm.
practice. We're
Yep.
creating this collaboration, right? And we're being in it together. And that's such a powerful connection moment between a leader and a team member.
Yeah, totally. I was just thinking,
Yeah.
the manager to me says, "Who has time for these conversations?"
Yeah.
I'm thinking this. I don't have time to talk about this with my team.
Yeah,
Like,
no, we're done.
immediately,
We're
that's
on to
it.
the next thing, an instant later, 100%. But saying that we don't have time for cultural stuff, for leadership stuff,
Mm,
is like to me the equivalent of saying we don't have time to get a weight and temperature on an exam. Like your practice cannot function at its best
right.
without us investing some level of time into
Hmm.
these development of team members and their skills, development of yourself as a leader, creating really clear expectations, like what we're talking about right now, and how we handle difficult clients. Like that stuff is like foundational to
Yep.
everything you do. So I
Yeah.
understand it feels like you don't have time, but we have to make the time. Otherwise, when things get difficult, it all spirals. And I can
A
tell
lot
you
of,
for sure, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm on
oh,
a
it's okay.
rant. Don't interrupt me. I can tell
Keep
you
going.
for sure the practices that have this foundation in place, where they have got things super clear, accountability, expectations, clear communication, appreciation, all of these different components to a strong culture. When that stuff is locked in, and then the poop hits the fan with being short staffed, with COVID when it first hit, the practices that had that foundation in place continue to thrive.
Hmm.
It
Yep.
didn't throw off everything, culture tanked, everybody hates each other, everybody's quitting. Like it didn't do that. So
Because it had
that's
a
what we're
foundation.
talking. We're talking about stability here. We're
Yep.
not talking about like the extras.
Yeah.
That was in air quotes for people listening. We're talking about creating stability for your team and your culture and development. That's what
Yep.
we're talking about. It's big stuff.
Yeah. And when you're able to set up that foundation, you actually have the gift of time. Because the reason why our time is so capitalized on is because we're kind of constantly, I hear from leaders all the time putting out the little fires everywhere.
100%.
And
And
that's
they just keep
because,
same issues over and over, right?
yeah,
Same
yeah, yeah, yeah.
communication, all the different issues. Where
Yep.
if we invest that time up front and put that foundation in place, it works for us
Yep.
and it eliminates a whole ton, the vast majority of that stuff that is taking so much time for us to manage on a day-to-day basis. It's
Yeah.
worth the investment. And
Hmm. I
I would
totally agree.
suggest that glue is a good place to look for that help. What about you, Kat? Do you suggest that?
I would, I highly suggest that, Amy.
All right, I feel complete. Do you, Kat?
I feel so good, and I hope that, there was a nugget of knowledge in here somewhere,
Yeah, that somebody
for
can
sure.
grab one little thing, then our job is done. All
Yep.
right. All right, guys. Well, we will see you next time.
See you later.